police detective wakes up from a coma and avenges his family's death. Today, we will be recapping a film called Hard to Kill from the year 1990, which is a justice-demanding story fueled by vengeance. I hope you enjoy the video, so let's start. The movie opens in 1983 in Los Angeles, California, where we meet the movie's protagonist, Mason Storm. Mason Storm is a police detective who is investigating a mob meeting on an abandoned pier. Two mob parties reunite, one led by Calabrese and the other led by Valero. The criminals are conversing in the dark while unaware that Mason Storm is secretly recording them with a video camera. Valero introduces a third mystery party to Calabrese. The mystery man wants the mob to eliminate the current state senator, Senator Caldwell, so he can take his place in the office. The mystery man guarantees the mob a handsome fee for this assassination and utters the phrase, "You can take that to the bank." Mason recognizes the mob members but fails to identify the mystery person. Mason starts facing problems with his video camera and gets spotted by one of the mob members, Mikey. Mikey gets knocked out by Mason, so Mason flees from the scene. The mob chases after Mason, but he manages to escape them. Later, Mason calls Detective Carl Becker, his trustworthy colleague, to inform him about the mob meeting and the videotape he recorded. Mason advises Carl to keep the information a secret, unaware that two dirty cops, Jack Axel and Max Quintero, working for the mystery man, are listening to their conversation. Mason then goes to a local grocery store to buy champagne for him and his wife. While Mason chats up with the shopkeeper, a few thugs barge into the store to rob it. The shopkeeper tries to fight them but gets shot. Mason steps up and confronts the thugs. Eventually, he fights all of them one by one and kicks their asses. The local police and EMTs arrive, taking away the thugs and thanking Mason for his bravery. Mason returns home and hides the video camera and the tape in his kitchen. He goes upstairs to his wife Felicia and his young son Sonny. He says his prayers with his son and puts him to sleep. He heads back to his room and drinks champagne with his wife, while a squad of intruders enters their house. The squad consists of dirty cops, including Jack Axel. They break into Mason's room and start firing. Felicia dies while Mason tries to fight, but gets shot as well. On the other hand, more dirty cops assassinate Detective Carl in his house. Back at Mason's, the dirty cops plant drugs in the house and steal multiple tapes while Sonny notices them. They start shooting at Sonny, but he manages to escape. Mason and his wife are brought into the hospital while Lieutenant Kevin O'Malley, Mason's peer, arrives and witnesses the press interviewing Assemblyman Vernon Trent, mourning Mason Storm. Trent was, in fact, the mystery man at the beginning of the movie and responsible for Mason and his wife's assault. Captain Dan Hoolan pays his condolences to O'Malley after a doctor informs him that Mason Storm has passed away. Hoolan is the captain of the Los Angeles Police Department, but he is also a dirty cop working for Vernon Trent. Moments after the dirty cops leave, a doctor informs O'Malley that Mason Storm is still alive, but he is in a coma. O'Malley finds an audio tape in Mason's vest and keeps it. He respects Mason and trusts him, so he orders the doctor to remove Mason's name from every record and register him as a John Doe to hide his identity. O'Malley knows Mason isn't dirty or has never used drugs. He knows Mason has some information, and this way, Mason will be safe and no one will come to eliminate him. As time passes during Mason's coma, news reports say Senator Caldwell has died in a plane crash, which was actually an assassination orchestrated by Trent. 7 years pass by, and it's now 1990, where Trent is officially a powerful and influential state senator, while Mason is still in a coma in an LA coma center, listed as John Doe. Two nurses watch over Mason, Nurse Andy Stewart and Nurse Martha. Andy is a British nurse operating in America. Martha teases Andy because Andy has a crush on Mason, and she would often talk to him during his coma. Mason finally wakes up after 7 years, and the doctors take him for X-rays and CAT scans. Meanwhile, Andy calls the LAPD. Andy's calls for O'Malley to inform him about a John Doe waking up from a coma after 7 years, but her call is intercepted by one of the corrupt officers who believe Mason is dead. The corrupt cop informs Hoolan, and they suspect it might be Mason, so they plan to finish off Mason and the nurses whom he might have talked with. Nurse Andy checks up on Mason and informs him that 7 years have passed since he was in a coma. Mason remembers everything and tells her the people who want him dead might come soon, so she needs to get him out of the hospital. Andy doesn't believe it and leaves while Danny, a massage therapist, takes Mason down the hall for a massage. Meanwhile, Detective Jack Axel enters the hospital, disguised as a doctor. Axel asks the receptionist to show him a list of their coma care unit patients, while Mason gets a massage from Danny. Russ, the security guard, suspects Axel and follows him to Mason's room, only to get shot by Axel. Danny takes Mason back to his room and finds Axel with Russ on the floor. Axel lures Danny and shoots him, while Mason enters an elevator to escape. Andy returns to Mason's room and finds the dead bodies of her colleagues, so she rushes to help Mason. She finds Mason and takes him to his car, while Axel chases them. Axel fails to murder Mason, and Andy drives away with him to a secret location. On the other hand, we see Senator Vernon Trent holding a press conference after seizing illegal weapons from criminals. He talks about ending crime in California and ends the conference with his signature line, "You can take that to the bank." After the press conference, Trent is informed by Captain Hullen that Mason escaped. Trent orders them to pin the blame on Mason for Axel's mess in the hospital and portray Mason as a corrupt officer who shot his wife and attempted suicide. Andy takes Mason to a friend's house, located in a remote mountain area. Mason wakes up and hears Trent's commercial, where he repeats his signature phrase, "You can take that to the bank." Afterward, Andy calls Martha back at the hospital, but Mason cuts off her call because it can be traced. Mason and Andy watch TV, where the news hails Mason as a dirty cop who escaped from the hospital through his associates, so Mason contacts Jerry Murphy, a news reporter. Later, Jerry Murphy reports on the news that a coma patient, Detective Mason, contacted him. Jerry mentions that Mason swore to him that he is innocent of all the charges made against him in the press, and has evidence that he wants to disclose to the public. Trent watches this news and realizes he could be exposed, so he commands his pet cops to take out Mason and the two nurses. Back at Mason's hideout, Mason tries to eat food, but his body is still too weak and his muscles have been atrophied. So, he writes Andy a list of Chinese herbs and a bunch of needles for his meditation and recovery. Andy asks where he learned to write in Chinese, so Mason reveals that he grew up in China because his dad was a missionary, so he learned Chinese and martial arts as he grew up there. The next day, Andy returns from Chinatown with all the herbs, while Mason looks in better condition than before. Andy brings Mason a couple of vintage newspapers from the day he and his family were murdered. Mason reads the papers and mourns their deaths, not knowing his son escaped. Mason now starts meditating and exercising, slowly recovering his strength. A montage shows Mason using acupuncture, moxibustion, and meditation techniques to heal himself. Later at night, Mason and Andy go through Mason's medical reports and find the contact number of an old woman. The next day, after talking on the phone, Andy pays the old woman a visit. Andy questions the woman if she knows any O'Malley, but she refuses and gives Andy her number if anything comes up. Andy goes inside the woman's house and finds a police medal, which means O'Malley lived here and the woman lied. At night, Andy returns to Mason and finds him working out. She brings a flower for him, and they both proceed to make love. Later on, Mason misses his wife and child, so he takes the Jeep and visits their graves. The next day, Andy calls Martha, but she doesn't return her calls, so Andy visits her apartment. On the other hand, Captain Hulland and the other dirty cops are tailing Andy. Andy knocks on Martha's door, but her neighbor informs Andy that Martha has died. The neighbor accuses Andy of being responsible for Martha's death, so Andy flees from the scene without creating any trouble, unaware that all the dirty cops are now following her. Meanwhile, Mason returns to his hideout, where O'Malley awaits him. They both reunite and hug each other. O'Malley reveals Mason's son, Sonny, is still alive. He shows him pictures where Sonny is a teenager now. He took Sonny in after he came to him on the night Mason and his wife were shot. O'Malley explains that he raised Sonny and sent him to a private school with a fake name to keep him safe. O'Malley reveals the woman Andy met is his mother, and Andy left a number for him. That's how he traced Mason here. Mason feels a relief knowing his son is alive and thanks O'Malley for his efforts. Later, O'Malley mentions that he found Mason's audio tape in his vest 7 years ago. He further mentions that he turned it in for evidence but made a duplicate, which is back home with his mother. O'Malley also brings in a gun for Mason. Before leaving, Mason requests O'Malley to get Sonny out of town as far as possible to keep him safe from danger, while he delivers the videotape to Jerry Murphy's studio. Subsequently, Mason remembers hearing Senator Trent's tagline on his recorded audio tape and figures out he was the mystery man. Mason now makes up his mind for revenge and mocks Trent's line by saying he'll take the senator to the bank, but it will be a blood bank. Andy returns and informs Mason that Martha has died, so Mason guides her to pack the bags to leave. While they pack, Axel, Max, Holland, and the rest of the dirty cops follow Andy to their hideout and enter the house. They spread out and rain fire on the duo. Mason protects Andy, fights the cops one by one, and shoots them. He breaks their arms and throws them from the ceilings. He manages to escape from the back with Andy and drives away in the Jeep. Axel informs Holland to cover the back, so the remaining cops can surround Mason's Jeep and start firing at them. Mason runs the Jeep on the cops and breaks his way out. Mason and Andy make their way into the city, where they trade vehicles with a couple of Mexicans. Mason and Andy arrive at Mason's old house, where a new family is living and renovating the house. Mason and Andy pose as realtors and offer to market the house if the new owner can let them look around. They enter the house and Mason remembers his memories with his wife and son. Andy distracts the lady and looks around the house while Mason goes to the kitchen and finds the secret place where he hid the video camera. He takes it out and quickly leaves with Andy. Before they deliver the video to the news studio, Mason calls Mrs. O'Malley and instructs her to inform O'Malley to leave a message at the Bonaventure Hotel's front desk under the name Andrea Smith. As Mrs. O'Malley notes everything down, across from her house, Trent's men listen to all of their conversation and plan to intercept. On the other hand, O'Malley picks Sonny up from school and brings him home. While they pack their bags, O'Malley takes the tape, calls the Bonaventure Hotel, and leaves a message for Mason. O'Malley gets in the car with Sonny and heads out, away from the city. Later at night, Captain Holland and his men arrive at the Bonaventure Hotel before Mason and ask the front desk about a message for Andrea Smith. Moments later, Mason and Andy arrive at the hotel. Mason looks around the hotel, while Andy asks the front desk about a message for Andrea Smith. She gets the message and conveys to Mason that Sonny is safe with O'Malley, who has the audio tape, and they both are headed for Union Station. Mason sighs in relief until he spots Axel and the rest of Trent's men. They corner Mason and Andy, but Mason kicks one of the men to break a window, and he escapes from there. Mason and Andy steal a car and drive away in it. On the road, more cops block their path, but Mason drives the other way around to escape. Meanwhile, at Union Station, O'Malley buys 2 tickets for the train. He reveals to Sonny that his father is alive, and he lied about his death to protect him. O'Malley also mentions that his father loved him, and they might get to reunite if Mason makes it on time. If he doesn't, he will have to board the train alone. As O'Malley assures Sonny of his safety, Senator Trent's men arrive at the scene. O'Malley talks with them and stalls, while handing Sonny the tape from behind. O'Malley tells Sonny to run while he fights off the cops. Sonny and O'Malley run outside, but O'Malley gets shot. He still doesn't give up and fights back, eventually taking a second bullet and dying. Mason and Andy arrive at the Union Station, where Mason notices Sonny running away from Trent's goons. Mason runs after them while Andy goes to the highway and asks for help. Mason chases them through Chinatown to a thin alley, where he catches up with one cop. He breaks his leg and throws him in a dumpster. The other cop, Max, who is still running after Sonny, eventually catches up with him, but so does Mason. Mason fights him and throws him on a food stall. He twists his arm and remembers twisting his arm 7 years ago too, when he attacked him at his house. He puts Max in a chokehold and knocks him out. Mason finally reunites with his son, but they both hide as soon as they hear more police sirens. Subsequently, Andy arrives in a car with a stranger. Mason tells Andy to look after Sonny while he takes out one more trash, which was Senator Trent himself. Mason steals the car and drives off while Andy introduces herself to Sonny. Soon after, Mason secretly arrives at Senator Trent's mansion. Captain Holland approaches Trent and informs him that Mason Storm might come after him here. Meanwhile, Mason quietly breaks into the mansion and confronts Axel and other dirty cops playing pool. He puts away his gun and fights them one by one. Mason knocks one out by smacking him on the wall and smashes the pool cue stick on the other one. Axel attacks Mason with a knife, but Mason remembers that Axel was the one who shot his wife, so he stabs Axel in the throat with the pool stick. Holland realizes that Mason has infiltrated the mansion, so he becomes alert. He looks around the mansion and comes across the dead bodies of his detectives. He runs to the senator, who is missing now, so he runs downstairs. He comes across Mason and shoots at him, but misses. Mason confronts him about his wife, and slaps Hullen to shame him. Hullen grabs an iron rod to fight him, but Mason overpowers him and uses his tie to choke him. Mason knocks him out and starts looking for Senator Trent. He goes to his room and looks around, only to find Trent hiding in his closet with a gun. He tries to shoot Mason, but Mason snatches the gun and shoves it in Trent's mouth. Mason takes him downstairs and tells him that he is very eager to shoot him, but he will let him live so he can put him in prison, where he will rot in misery for the rest of his life. Trent tries to retaliate, but Mason smacks him with the gun. Meanwhile, dozens of cops arrive and corner Mason, commanding him to drop the gun. Cops hold Andy and Sonny while the senator tries to talk his way out, thinking cops will arrest Mason. The police inform them they have seen Senator's tape that Mason delivered to Jerry Murphy's studio, and actually, they are here to arrest Senator Trent. Trent gets arrested while Mason reunites with Andy and his son. Mason Storm walks away with Andy and Sonny, while Senator Trent's video plays on screen. The movie ends here. I hope you liked the story recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.